Dwight Grant and Stefan Sekulić. I mean, Stefan Sekulić, just quickly talk about, his little experience there in the UFC. I mean, he had a good showing against a guy like Emiev on a short notice debut, but this fight, for how much I watch Emiev, and I'm not going to call Dagestani fighters a dime a dozen here, but there's so many standouts that if you follow them the way some of us do, and you see how well they do against some of these guys, I mean, the fight, like, Stefan's, unfortunately, is just going to fly over your head a little bit. So I went back, I revisited the fight. I love the durability. I think that he underestimated just how good Emiev is going to be in some of the areas where he thinks he's the better fighter. And it showed drastically. Obviously, he got suspended for the 2 years by USADA. That was the big story. He does have kind of a peace out. I think I saw it in MMA Fighting. I want to say where he talks about kind of just his regret and just his apology overall and how he wants to right this ship. But, he's only 29 years old, so he does have a lot of opportunity to kind of get better. And I mean, that's the real stuff about him, right? I think it's going to be the longevity. He's had, a long time to kind of rewrite the ship, if you will, and get back to kind of the basics of what it looks like now, because I really think that Dwight Grant has to learn drastically from his last fight, right? We saw a guy like Daniel Rodriguez who, I mean, look how good he looks now in the Mike Perry fight, but he looked a little, less in shape, obviously, for what was, the full training camp, how good he looked as a boxer in the Mike Perry fight. I mean, all he did was outlast Dwight Grant here, right? I think that was the main thing that, textbook fighting. I think that if you ever go watch that fight, if you rewatch it, whatever the case may be, just look at how well the referee and Daniel Rodriguez do at just watching what's happening. Because Dwight Grant is 100% throwing volume strikes, but they're not the best or hardest strikes. So he's kind of getting blocked a lot. And as he's kind of losing the power and kind of just the efficiency and just the sheer aspect of how good those strikes are in general, I think that you see Daniel Rodriguez completely recover. So in that time that, Grant is believing that he's doing enough damage there, just quickly trying to finish that fight out of what looked to be weird desperation, right? It was just he got so excited to end Daniel Rodriguez that quickly that he kind of didn't pick his shots as well as he wanted. And I think I remember hearing his coaches yell something along the lines of like, short, quick elbow. So yeah, in that situation, like Jen Rodriguez is covering up. You're kind of like clearly gassing out here. So why not take a breather and just give him a couple wake-up shots, I think that's a situation where you could have done a lot better. And it's a really good learning curve for a guy who's got chin for days. He got tired in that fight. I think that the knockout looked bad, but if you look at Greg get up, he doesn't look as bad as you think he would, especially for a guy who just gassed himself out trying to knock out a man like Daniel Rodriguez. Daniel Rodriguez is a beautiful striker. And in that fight, you can tell textbook, right? Outlast the guy that's just trying to, who land the big shot, try to get you down, keep doing what you're doing. Referee's seeing you. And then, within a few minutes there, he was able to just finish the fight by himself. So I think that was one of those things that you have to take away, just how good Daniel Rodriguez is, but also what there might be for Dwight Grant to learn. I think that when you're going into this fight, you have a lot of, good things that have gone well for you outside of that one fight. Another Dana White contender standout. I think that the power is just so good there. You just have to be smarter with the strikes, right? Don't let a guy like this keep you up against the feds. Don't let him kind of run his little game plan there to overrun just like durability wise. I think that Grant showed that he has actually a pretty good chin there despite getting knocked down. I like the way he kind of got up and was awake there. And in this fight, I think he has a lot less to worry about when it comes to just how good, Daniel Rodriguez's boxing is, because when you look at some of the stats, even though we just haven't seen Stefan fight very much, but I mean, just Dwight's the better striker by far. Strikes landed per minute, and in the fights that we've seen him, that includes the Joe Ban win, the Pedersoli Jr. win, and then the Hill win as well. But then we have the losses to Otto and Rodriguez as well. So, a lot more to go on. But again, almost 3.5 strikes landed per minute versus his 1.5 on Emiev. And the accuracy, again, that's what I was trying to get at, right? So I think that Daniel Rodriguez probably butchered his numbers because it was just sheer, just constant volume, but I don't think they can count that was truly landing. There's not a much size difference here. Like these boys are just even to the T. and I almost said something else there. But the one thing that I love here is just how good Dwight is going to be able to dictate some of the close range type of fights. I mean, he's got 100% takedown accuracy and supports a 78% takedown defense. So for me, I know that he likes to keep the fight standing. He likes to be exciting. And so he has all the good defensive aspects of his game to do well in this fight. So let's take a quick look at these lines here. I mean, I didn't give too much bump to Sekulic here, but I mean, yeah. I mean, opened it as a plus 250. They didn't think that Dwight Grant was a minus 300 type of favorite. Probably, fix that up a little bit with Sekulic getting some good bump on that plus 250. Now he's closer to a minus 170, a plus 170, a plus 180 dog. And I think it comes down to just the durability, right? And the thing is, I want to give Sekulic his good bump here because, like, let's be honest, the guy's only lost to David Zavada and Emiev and outside of the Adriano Balbi fight. So these are big names across the board when it comes to who you're fighting and how many times you fought. Crazy amount of finishes across the board, right? So that's why they think that these boys are going to be obviously going the under. I haven't looked at those lines, but I can almost assume that they're probably fairly low when it comes to just this fight ending before the distance. But again, I think that Dwight should have the real experience there in the UFC cage and really trying to, dictate that pace of how he wants to strike. But if he kind of capitalizes a little too early and gasses himself out, I think this fight could be terrible for him because if you look at some of the things that Sekulic is going to be able to do, it's a lot of that grinding style, which is probably not going to be favorable for Dwight Grant if he's getting tired, if also for some reason isn't getting finished. It's going to be a fight that he has to really push through. And like I said, I think the Daniel Rodriguez fight was one of those fights where he did go up against a really good striker, maybe a potential better striker than him. And he did look good. He looked great. And even from how he got up from that finish, I think this is a fight where he has an opportunity to rectify that. And, obviously Vegas thought the same thing, but we're set to fix their situation pretty quickly. Outside of that, I think it's a pretty interesting fight. Can't wait for it.